But yeah, when I got out of the military, I didn't know how to continue. I didn't know what to do. I went to AT&T for a while, like I think a lot of people do, just finding something. That's when I found launch. Started off in recruiting, moved my way up through recruiting to running the Working Heroes program. Obviously, after COVID, there was just a lot of companies just looking for anybody. But once we kind of came out of COVID and we knew we were back in a market that we could, help veterans get into the industry, that was something that I took on. I worked with my sales guy, Evan, and it was something, like I said, I really wish I would have had it when I got out of the military. I love the work I did on aircraft. I love troubleshooting. Like I said, I'm a wire chaser for days. But again, when I got out back in '09, I just didn't know about programs like this. When I was getting out, we had just heard about, what's the program for transitioning now? What's that?
Was it TAPS?
No, the one where they get to go to like a company and do an
Oh,
apprenticeship. Yeah, skill bridge. So that had like just came out, so it wasn't really widely adopted that I knew of. So it was just something that I didn't. So when I had the chance to work with vets and help them and explain to them, like, hey man, you've got a lot of great background. You just need to understand how to go from military aircraft to commercial. I was like, man, this is just an amazing program. I'm so happy they're still running it. But yeah, so, and then obviously with running that for, I was with Launch for almost 7 years. Obviously, I know the industry. I know a lot of aerospace and defense. And now I've moved into the tech sales side, working with a company called IFS. And we're now selling enterprise software to aerospace and defense customers. Some of our customers now are like Saab Aircraft, Lockheed Martin, BAE Systems. So
that's awesome, man. You went from chasing wires to being a tech sales. I think that's a good to have that background even in sales, which I think it's a great skill to have, because you got to learn to effectively communicate with the customers to either sell or to understand your product so they can feel comfortable buying from you. And because a lot of times you might have a great product, but if you don't sell it, then they don't get the benefit of using your program, and that could have helped them in their company or in their life. So I think that's I think selling is just an important skill that everybody should be learning to improve.
Well, I mean, it's something that you don't realize in the military. You're already getting that experience, because you're learning to interact with different, ethnicities, races, cultures, and you learn so much right there. It's just learning how to continue those conversations, right? That's something that I take away from the military every single day. The fact that I can adapt to anything. I've moved from, when I was in California, moved to Iwakuni for 11 months and just had to learn,
Yeah.
So,
and it's good.
Those things are all adaptable and very, very good to have post-military career.
Yep, exactly. So what are a couple of things, like let's say name like 3 things that you think the program that you set up, Working Heroes program, for launch. What couple of things you believe that was very much needed? Like when you see military guys transitioning out, like the top 3 things that was like super needed. Like this is a must in this program.
Yeah. Well, first off, like one of the things that was a common one is when we're in the military, we're always moving around, right? Like a lot of guys just want to have somewhere to call home. They want somewhere to call home. And so that was always a big one. So making sure that you're finding the right place for them, finding the right, fit, whether it's, being close to home or just the right environment. That was a big one. Another thing is just, again, these guys have so many skills, and like, I didn't know the skills that I had till I got out, and being in recruiting, I see how much these guys make. It's just, it's learning, if you're passionate about aircraft maintenance, if you're passionate about what you're doing in the military, there is a path on the civilian side. You have to do the work. You have to find that opportunity. You can't it's not just going to come to you. It's not, hey, I'm a veteran, so they're going to hire you. You do have to find it out. You have to be able to compose your military experience to civilian terms. So that's another big one. Just understanding, hey, I was part of, 1,500 sorties with a 98% operational efficiency. What does that mean? I've literally had managers ask me, like, what does that mean? And you're like, well, a sortie is anytime a plane leaves for a mission and when it comes back. So
and what would somebody find like that translator? Like, what good resources do you think was a great benefit to you to use, and to help them translate that into their resume? Or was it you?
A lot of the times that was me helping them. Okay. When I was doing it, what I tried to do is I'd try to go to company websites. And, if I'm trying to get a job, I'd look at the company website and I'm looking at what they're doing. And even though we don't use the same terminology, you can generally figure out, whether it's operational, whether it's, tactical, just trying to find that. There's a lot of sites online now. I actually looked up Google the other day, just, military to civilian terms, and there's a lot that can help you. The other thing that I would say is talk to other people, like connect on LinkedIn. And, if they're a vet, let's be honest, most vets want to help other vets, right? Like not many vets are going to be like, oh, you're a vet, go away. I reached out to a lot of people that were in the industry and said, hey, like what can I use off of my military experience that's going to help here? So it's just asking questions, obviously internet's a wealth of knowledge, but,
Oh yeah.
talking to other people who are outside of, the military and what they did. Or that's the other thing. If you know somebody in the industry, just sit down with them and talk to them. Hey, this is what I did. What can I translate that to? So,
okay. Yeah, I totally agree. And so helping them translate, knowing that your skills do translate, just knowing that, right? Putting it on paper where civilians can understand is an important thing. And what's the third one? What's the third important one?
I'm going to go back. To be honest, I'm going to double down. It's finding a company that can also utilize military, right? If you go, and that's one of the issues we had when we were with Working Heroes is we actually cut a couple people out of the program, a couple of clients out of the program, because a lot of MROs expect people to just come in and do a task card. That's it. Like, but guys in the military, that's not how we do maintenance. We do maintenance differently. Things are, recorded differently. So, having a place that either has a good prior veteran community is huge, because those people are going to understand, okay, this guy did this, so I just need to show him, okay, instead of this way, we need to do it this way, and this is how we mark it off, right? So you got to find the right company that has the right I would say management and infrastructure to also accept military. Those are pretty much the three good ones.
Like roughly how many aerospace companies or aviation companies they deal with?
I think at our highest, I think we were working with over 450 different companies.
Yeah. So we
had a lot. Obviously that changed a little bit post-COVID. Post-COVID, the number of clients came down because we were more focused on strategic partnerships, where we could truly help them get, entry level, mid-level, and senior level guys. Those are the ones that we really focused on post-COVID. But yeah, so there were definitely a couple. I mean, a lot in aerospace are going to have military, right? Like a lot are going to have military, but if the military guys aren't in a managerial area or able to influence them or able to mentor them, then it's not really going to help them. So that would be probably the last one, is making sure that the outfit is ready for them.
Okay. So a good military fit to I guess prepare them, train them up into what this organization is doing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. That's because, again, like I said, if they just go in and they're expecting them, oh, they're an aircraft maintenance technician, they're expecting them to just come in and do it. Some of them will. I'm sure some of them can get by and understand it, but there's a lot of guys that just need, hey, you're doing it way A, we need you to do it A plus, like we just need it just a little bit different.
That's good. And would you think that somebody, jumping into aviation, let's say they got their A&P, you think it's important for them to have a lot of industry knowledge other than outside of their, airframes that they work on?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, having knowledge is only going to help you ramp up faster. But if you really only know your aircraft, again, there's going to be a lot of similarities, but there's also going to be a lot of differences, right? For me, for instance, working on an F-18 that's, about as big as my basement, as opposed to a 747, how am I going to chase wires in the back and the front? Like, how does that work? So it's not super different. It's just understanding, how to do it. Also, some guys like me, I worked on the legacy Hornets, right? That was all analog. Everything in the new Boeings are all digital. So again, those things are going to come pretty quickly once you understand, okay, so this is that, this is this, it's just getting that first little, click over, I guess, understanding where your experience fits.
Yeah, where the gaps are in your knowledge currently is now, and then working on filling those gaps in. Getting into the books, mentorships, trainings, and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And what do you think so far? Let's say 300 to 400 companies that you've worked with at launch. What is the feedback of working with veterans? Like, what's the overall general feedback working with veterans?
Most companies want vets. They want vets because they know their background. They know, they know we're adaptable. They know that we're going to show up on time, right? Like, they want those skills. So almost every company wants to hire veterans. But again, then it comes back to, are they ready to hire veterans? Do they know how to help them? Do they know, can they get them in, get them trained, and get them operational? Or is it, hey, we're going to bring them in and we don't know how to train them, right? I think that's the biggest thing that you see in aerospace right now is, yes, they have the experience, but they're not an AMT. They're not ready to just come in and work. They need some tweaks, right? mentorship, some, so that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing. Like I said, every company wants them. It's just a matter of, and then again, you have the guys who are like, oh, we need 10 years of experience. Well, a guy with 10 years of military experience, again, doesn't translate the same as 10 years of civilian. So it's
That's
just
one
understanding.
airframe. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just understanding that little bit of difference, like any job, you got to start somewhere and work up. So
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And so, I mean, and I'm just kind of thinking about it as you talk about this, how importance of filling those gaps for the military guys. I mean, they would have the same thing for the 147 guys coming out of school, right? So having so it would probably be more with the bigger companies who have training departments established already, right?
yep.
To somebody who probably has a 50, 100 man, complete team, and they don't have that kind of infrastructure.
The infrastructure, like I said, it's just everybody wants a vet. It's a matter of having the training, having the mentorship, and getting comfortable with them. But like you were saying, I believe you were saying, like, they're going to need that with any company that they go to. It's just a matter of finding the right fit for them. And in aviation, you're going to have a lot of them. It's just, there's also some that they're so behind on work that they can't train. They can't,
Yeah.
with where we're at with supply chain, where we're at with parts, like some of them don't have 2 weeks to train. They need guys now. So
Right.
that's where the infrastructure comes into play, right?
So you think something like a skill bridge, learning those things like supply, ordering parts, learning the terminology would probably play a huge role on them getting ready for the civilian life instead of getting out, then trying to learn as they're out. And that 6 months would be very crucial for somebody. But so I've spoken to people about skill bridge before, and they talk about that there's a little bit of a liability because they don't want to release them out in the maintenance area, right? So what have you seen? I mean, I've never taken skill bridge. I actually have never talked to anybody that's taken any skill bridge in aviation. I've talked to people who, like mechanics, who wanted to try out real estate, electrician, stuff like that, but never aviation maintenance. And have you kind of placed guys in that skill bridge program before?
So we unfortunately weren't able to do skill bridge. We were working, like, as I was transitioning out, we were working on getting the ability to. The reason for that is that with skill bridge, right, you have to be able to watch the worker. You have to be able to, and so with launch being a contract, we weren't on site. We weren't there watching them. We couldn't evaluate them. So we couldn't do skill bridge. And I've also heard a lot of the same things that you just said. Like, I've heard they go to some of the aviation companies, but then they're not quite, like you said, not on aircraft, maybe back office or back shop type stuff, because like you said, it is a liability, right? And then if you train them up and they don't stay with your company, then they leave. So I think that's a piece with skill bridge that may need to evolve in time. But again, unfortunately, I don't have as much direct knowledge of it that I wish I did.
Right. It's because I've spoken to a couple of airlines already, and they said that it's what was it? It was one of them was a liability, but they weren't technically an employee of the place, of the company, and then it makes them be a little more of a liability because they're not legally an employee.
Yeah, they're technically an intern, right? Because they're still being paid and employed by the military. So yeah, that's I mean, that's another piece of it in our industry with, let's take defense contractors, for instance, right? Like, you can't bring a skill bridge on, get him his secret clearance, and then later, it's just kind of a tricky situation with that one, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. So in the defense, they still need to maintain their security clearance. That's a
lot of times.
I haven't really thought. Yeah, in defense, it's very common. When it comes to just about anything. So I know I haven't talked too much about security clearance, so I need to get a little more educated on that and maintaining those records, because I try to get my records, because I was trying to work over here with Lockheed, and they asked for records, but I didn't have nothing. It was so difficult to find that and where to go from, because the last base I was at that did my interview, because it was a 10-year update, and then I did it out in Kadena. So trying to get a hold of those guys was, that was a journey.
Yeah, that's something that, like, that's another piece to a lot of the defense, that sometimes you have to have it. Sometimes they can start with interim, and that's where things get iffy, going back to infrastructure, right? Can they get it for you? Do you already have it? It's just another piece it is a battle. But again, if you're doing your research and you're looking for the right place, you're going to find that. And I guess, I want to go back and say one other thing I wish I had when I got out is, when I got out, I did things the wrong way. And I'll say that because I got out and I was like, oh, I'm out now. I can go find whatever job I want, go to school, do this, do that. But that didn't dawn on me till I got out. Right? If I would have taken even 2 weeks, a month before I got out, searching all that would have been so much better. So I would say, start planning your transition 3 to 4 months before. Don't wait till you're getting out to do it. It's exciting. And, you may be going home to see friends and family, that you may not have seen for a while. But 3 to 4 months before you get out is when you need to start planning and
Yeah.
understanding, and you'll have a better picture of where the industry's at that moment, as opposed to when you get out. So that's
Yeah.
another thing that I think is very important.
Have you ever had guys, transition over and work with you and just disappeared and they come back like 2 weeks later or like a week later?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. There was one guy, obviously I won't say any names or a client,
Yeah, yeah.
but he called me, and he had a job lined up. He went in and they let him go that day. They said that it was something about his background or something. I don't remember exactly, but so he called me and he was kind of in a daze and just didn't know what to do. And so I worked with him for about a week, and I ended up getting him a working heroes position. He was a prior Marine, and when he went in, I got 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and they were just like, he's great. He's learning, he's picking it up, he's being here. And I guess one night there was an issue with one supervisor. He dropped his toolbox and never came back. And I was like,
Dang.
what happened? Like, I tried
Yeah.
to call him, never called me back. So it was something that I was like, I really thought I had the guy going in the right direction, because we also had him at a client that was, after 3 weeks, they were saying, yeah, we're going to bring him direct in like another month or two.
Yeah.
Which usually it's 6 months before they go direct, but they liked him, and it went. And I was like, well, what happened? On the other side of that, I had a guy who he got out of the military, and he's playing video games on Twitch, being a Twitch streamer. And he called me. And he's like, hey man, like I need something more regular, right? Like I need something. So I got him a job. This was probably 2019, I think it was 2018 or 19. I got him a job in Working Heroes, and he started. They took him direct after 4.5 months, and I got an email in late 23, and he just sent me an email. He's like, hey Ryan, I just wanted to say thank you. Like I had the job that you got me. I stayed there for about 2 years. I worked up, and I just got an offer at this company, and it was a defense contractor. Again, I'm not going to go into companies, but
Yeah.
he got a job that was paying 35 plus an hour at a defense contractor. That was his end goal, and he was able
Yeah.
to get the experience by going through Working Hero. So those were the calls that I love to take as a recruiter.
Yeah.
So,
Guys are
but
moving
yeah,
up and finally going to places where they want to be.
yep, exactly. And it's tough, because I know also when you're getting out of the military, you're getting 1,000 different offers, but 999 of them are, hey, do you want to go work in a Best Buy selling AT&T, or selling.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of fake stuff out there, unfortunately, too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's
So,
I've gotten that too, and I always say it's not my fault. Once guys get their A&P, I was like, hey, just be ready to get blown up by a
oh
bunch
yeah,
of
I
recruiters.
mean, because I think, what is it right now? Boeing's estimation is by 2030 we're going to be what, 100. Don't quote my numbers here, but I want to say it's 150,000 mechanics short in just the U.S.
I want to say, I know 24 is what it was. 124,000, something like that. In
Yeah,
the U.S.
so I mean,
technician
it's
wise, the number is getting smaller from a couple of years ago, and so
okay.
they're in the right place. The aviation industry.
I mean, I
They're
know
putting
when
some
I was
time in.
when I was leaving launch, there was a lot of stuff going good. I was lucky to be a part of the ATEC conference for a
Yeah,
couple of
nice.
runs, and understanding, what is it, choice arrow, and going after high schools and middle schools. And I mean, that's what we need right now. And
Yeah,
I think Boeing's prediction was, what, we're only capturing 30% of
yeah,
military vets with aviation experience coming out. I mean, that's upsetting, just hearing it, because again,
yeah.
knowing
And
what people in aircraft maintenance are making, like,
mhm.
vets are passing up good opportunities,
Yeah,
or they just don't know about them, which is my fault, which is what I did.
yeah. That's pretty much what I'm trying to do is share stories like yours, because you were out there in the front lines, helping vets, trying to get them in great opportunities. You had 400 plus companies behind you to to place them wherever they were, wherever they desired to be, and that's awesome. And that's
So,
something that when I have Code One, and that's was part of their journey, is to get their A&P and then go somewhere where they wherever their heart desires in aviation maintenance. So
yep.
now it's like picking your brain, and my favorite part was helping them find an opportunity out there that they loved, or they like, hey, where you want to live? Okay, you want to live here? All right, here's these companies. Then
Yep.
It is weird because these guys don't want to contact, they are afraid to make the email or make the
Yep.
contact with a company or a recruiter. And I'll help them. We'll go through LinkedIn, or like we'll find recruiters. I was like, well, I'm going to be in Seattle. Like right now, I'm helping somebody. It's like, hey, we'll be in Seattle and maybe Colorado, but I want to go to school as well. I was like, okay, cool. Here's a couple companies. Contact them. I was like, no, I'm scared. And then you made the contact for them. To me, it was more rewarding. So, which is kind of weird because I didn't know it was an actual business model. I mean, launch, it has this whole, business model that they continue to grow. And that's awesome. And I was like, how much are these guys getting? Because they're very, very like on it. They're very on it with, with vets and stuff like that. And so I started looking, I was like, oh, this can be an actual business. I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I see. So to me, it was interesting. I was like, well, I actually enjoy doing this. I don't like teaching. How about I go help these guys out and, educate them? I was like, hey, guys, for sure, get your A&P. I'll help them through that process. So now I'm learning, what you did with launch is, what are their struggles? Like, what is, some of these things that these guys need? So, and it's great that you are doing what you love now. And it doesn't even have to be aviation maintenance,
Nope.
and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just guys are comfortable there. And there's still a lot of questions that these guys don't know, like, hey, what's out there? Because I wouldn't think of a company called Launch or, some of these other recruiting companies or, it's also interesting. Like a couple of months ago, actually, I was talking to a director of maintenance on a, I forget what kind of shop they hold, but maybe 121, maybe that's what it is. But anyways, what they do is they maintain 737s and 757s. Yeah, I think that's what they are. And these guys, they work they work not for airlines, but celebrities, basically. Very high net worth individuals with these awesome, like, you might see a Gulfstream 6500 or something like that, and it's all decked out. But you imagine that on a 757, that's crazy, and these guys work on that plane. So there's cool little opportunities like that out there that they pay really well. You'll get to be exposed to, celebrities, and stuff like that, because these guys can afford to have planes like that, like a Drake or, something like that.
Yep.
I think that's cool. It was like, man, that'd be a cool opportunity. That'd be so awesome. It was like, if I wasn't doing this, and they were trying to hire me too. And I was like, no, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, we worked. There was a couple MROs that had some cool stuff. We worked with one MRO that worked on Taylor Swift's jet. We worked with one that worked with the San Antonio, I think it was the Spurs.
Okay. Yeah. Spurs.
Yeah. They worked their aircraft. We had another one that did Charlotte's and the Carolina Hurricanes aircraft. So yeah, there was definitely some cool ones. And those are, there's definitely some cool private outfits. And, that's something that, again, like when you're looking into aviation, when you understand there's military, rotor wing, business jet, regional jet, corporate jet, like these are all different opportunities that all need mechanics. So there's always an opportunity out there, especially once you have the A&P license.
Yeah. I mean, because I know Netflix has planes, Walmart has planes, because their regional presidents or VP presidents, when they want to go to a location, they don't typically take a commercial plane. They take the business jet and go.
They ain't calling Delta American. They're taking their own.
Yeah, you got. And I've seen my friends show me pictures of an MRO they work. I'm not going to name the place or anywhere, but he'll send me Snapchats of, say, of an owner of an NFL team, and it's like, they check this out, man. I was like, this is not. Somebody said, "Oh, that's a millionaire's plane." I was like, by the looks of that plane, the way he has that decorated, that is not a millionaire. That is a billionaire's plane. I looked up some of the logos and stuff like that, and I looked it up, and I was like, oh yeah, that guy owns NFL team and a corporation. He's the founder of a corporation, of a Fortune 500 company. So I was like, yeah, that guy is loaded. Also I've seen Jerry Jones planes, the Dallas Cowboys planes, sit out in front of what's it called? Somewhere, it was out in Tucson Airport. There was getting their plane worked on and stuff like that. So I always think that that'd be cool to work on some of those companies where you work on their planes, and hey, maybe you'll see a football player, or maybe you'll see a basketball player, or see a celebrity. So I think, I don't know, that's pretty cool, especially as somebody you support. For example, if you're a fan of the Cowboys, that'd be cool to be working for the Dallas Cowboys in some way, in some form.
Yeah, if working on their plane, working on their transportation, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So like we talked a little bit about I'm gonna switch gears here a little bit. We talked about the trends right now that Boeing's expect to hire, not Boeing itself, just the aviation industry in general, looking to do 120,000 to 160,000 technicians in the next 20 years. And did you kind of feel that pain a little bit in your position? Did you feel like it was really hard to find technicians? Like, man, this is, because I can imagine maybe there'll be a lot of IT people or some technology company, right? I can't think of an industry where like it's just saturated with workers.
No, I can't. And that's definitely, I mean, that was always a pain. It wasn't so much finding technicians, because there are a lot of technicians that are always looking for work. It was every company needed technicians. So when you have 10 in your book, you need 30 more. It wasn't finding the technician. It was having an abundance of them, right? Like having enough to fill orders and stuff like that.
Ready to deploy now.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I remember I was talking to even right in the middle, right in the middle of COVID. This is MRO. Was it MRO? No, it was Bombardier Service Center out in Tucson. And these guys, right in the middle of COVID, I asked them, I was like, because we were having a meeting right after the first of the quarter or their fiscal year. That was right after October 1st. We had a meeting right after that. And then I asked them, it's like, all right, well, all this going on, how many people are you looking to hire? And they were like, oh, we need like 30 people a week. What?
Yep.
Tucson? You're not going to get that. Not with your terms and conditions. Sorry, but
we'd get that.
That's going to be tough.
We'd get that so many. So we'd get that a lot more on the manufacturing side. MROs weren't hiring quite as many. But I mean, manufacturing, that especially tail end of COVID. I mean, we had so much business with OEMs and like suppliers, like Spirit and, all those, Bombardier down in Red Oak. And we didn't support Red Oak, but like all of those companies were mass hiring because they couldn't keep them. And, even now you look at supply chain's still going to be jacked for a while, until we can really get it back. And so what that does is it brings more opportunity, right? You have to have people who can fabricate. You have to have people who can do different types of things that they couldn't do before. It's just COVID messed so much up in the aviation industry. It feels like we're kind of back to where we are, but when you look into supply chains and you look into like manpower, we're still nowhere near where we need to be. So it's just going to be more and more. I'll bring in, some stuff that I'm learning from my new company that I didn't really learn from launch is obviously, the other piece to that is political, right? Like political things affect the business world. So right now, like what's going on with, Canadian companies, US companies, like it's all over the place. They need help with safety, compliance, governance, those are all something that just another piece of the industry that's going crazy.
Yeah, those things are super important. Transportation is a big deal.
Yep. I mean, that's why aviation, the world wouldn't work without aviation anymore, right? Whether it's business travel, whether it's getting goods from point A to point B, importing, exporting, most of that is all done aviation, and so it's just, we wouldn't be able to run if we didn't have it.
Yeah. I mean, that if I remember right, the government did help out the aviation companies to stay afloat because that's that crucial.
Yep. They definitely did.
During COVID, during the worst times of economic times, I have heard people have to be laid off so the companies can stay afloat too, which is unfortunate. But still, that industry is not going away. Not going away. It's very crucial to have that in. And I know that some planes were used differently. I know MROs were super packed.
MROs during COVID were insane. They just needed, because all these companies that weren't flying these aircraft were parking them. So we had one client that I think had over 200, 300 aircraft parked, because they're out in the desert and they had the room. And you still need mechanics, right? You still have to do checks. You can't just leave them sit there for ever.
Maintain them.
You got to do in and out of service checks and the regular stuff.
I was watching them being parked on dirt. I was like, that's not something you don't see every day, is an airplane, unless it's on display or something. But like actual serviceable aircraft being parked on dirt because they were crammed. Yeah, they were out there in Tucson and we're north of Tucson, and I was like, whoa! It was kind of cool because you could drive by there, and if you drive by, you're just going for like at least a mile, or maybe not that much, but pretty close to it, of just rows of planes. I was like, that's cool.
It was kind of scary though, because it kind of looked like the old military graveyards. You know what I'm saying? With all the planes that are just, you're like, wait, these can all fly. What?
Yeah, exactly. And they have to be maintained. So it's like, man, how do you pay for all that? You're not making money from your business and then maintaining it, and then I'm pretty sure it's not free to just park there. Not a public place to park.
It's all money.
So the MROs were probably killing it during that time.
Yep. We only had, I think, right as COVID started, we went down to 2 customers.
Oh, damn.
Going from 400, having over 350, 450 different sites that we could talk about, to 2. It was insane. It was, but that's, like I said, that's when kind of the working heroes kind of went to the wayside for a little bit, because MROs didn't care. They just needed bodies there that could work. And that, again, just a crazy time.
Yeah, that's quite a bit. 400 at 2.
Yep.
Whoa, that's crazy. It's a lot. So I'm gonna switch gears a little bit with this. It's I got a question here. It says, what did you take away learning from, like, I have my perspective, right, and you have a certain mindset, and you kind of don't see the world the same as some of you, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just But what did you see a lot? Coming up, guys transitioning out, that maybe it was a view that you didn't take, or not take, but that a thing that they needed help with.
The biggest thing that hurt, I would say, like, that people needed help with, that unfortunately I couldn't help with a lot of the times, is just realizing that another piece to it is, in aviation maintenance in the military, all your tools are provided, right? All your
That's
tools
cool.
are provided. What a lot of guys don't realize is a toolkit, a lot of AMTs, a lot of companies, a lot of aviation companies, you have to own your own tools. You have to bring your tools with you. And so that was another piece. Now, I had some clients that would either have like a loaner box while they got theirs so they could start working, or I had one company who would actually pay for the box for them. And then if they stayed with the company, they got to keep it. If they left after 6 months, then they just have to give it back. I had some companies like that, but a lot of the time, again, when you think about a tool program, what is that? That's more bodies that they need because they need to keep track of it. They have to keep track of cost, expense, make sure the tools are good. So it's just another piece to them. So that's another thing. I just, unfortunately, I couldn't work with some guys because they didn't have the ability to put out $1,500 for tools, $2,000 for a toolbox. I'm not saying all toolboxes are going to cost 15 to $2,000, but when you look at what you need for aviation, I mean, unless you have some of it lying around, which if you work on cars and stuff, you might have some. But if you don't have anything, it's going to be minimum $800 to $1,500 for a toolkit. So, and that's another thing that, again, when the guys would call me 2 to 3 months before they're getting out, hey man, make sure you're saving for a toolkit. You're going to have to but if they're calling me a week before they get out or 2 days after they get out or a week after they get out, it's an issue. Hey man, like I hate to ask, but can you ask mom and dad to get your tools and then you can pay them back or something? But that was a big one. And as launch, that was actually something that I was trying to work on. I had talked to Sonic Tools and we were trying to set up something with Snap-on just to see if there's any way that we could work with them. And again, it goes back to the point where, unfortunately for Launch's business model, it just didn't make sense, right? Because they can just be gone tomorrow and we can't, we're not on site. We're not there. We can't see them. We can't. So it was just a tough one. So that's another thing, is just making sure that people are ready. If they want a career in aviation maintenance,
right,
you got to be ready to put out for the tools, man. You have to.
Yeah,
So I'm sure you've seen that plenty of times too. Oh, I didn't know that.
They have to get their own stuff. And I've had Sonic come out to me and, we give these guys discounts and I've given a couple boxes out and I've had guys buy some of their toolbox. I still have a couple sets of toolboxes here. A car. I bought one for myself, just a car setup, and they've been good to me as well. So yeah.
I really like the whole team at Sonic. They were always very responsive, very good people. Had a lot of good talks with Scott Saxon, just a good dude overall. I really like their products. And the other thing that was nice about them is that it was all replaceable. Hey, if you buy this toolbox, they're going to replace it.
Oh yeah. So, I replaced a couple wrenches already with them, or a wrench and a screwdriver, and pretty easy process.
It's snap a picture, send them an email, and pretty much they send it out. So
that's a good one that you had to adjust to. And you said it's 3 to 4 months for sure, like a time frame, a time frame where to start getting ready for their transition.
I mean, I would say at least start doing research 3 to 4 months. Like at least start doing research, understanding some of the industry, try to just get a little bit of industry knowledge of what's going on out there. As much as we hate it as recruiters for people to call multiple recruiters, I would also tell some of my guys, hey, if this isn't working for you, talk to another company. Like there's plenty of opportunity. And if we don't have it, look for other. Obviously, when I worked for Launch, I wouldn't tell you that.
Yeah.
But now I do tell, because I still have guys reach out to me all the time because they think I'm a recruiter still, and I have no problem talking to them. I'll tell them, call Launch. But if Launch doesn't have what you're looking for, call, Aerotech or, whoever else is out there. Because again, you got to find what's right for you, right? If the money's not going to work for you or the place isn't going to work for you, it's not going to work long term. Just take the time, do 3 to 4 months, start doing research. Probably, I would say your best timeline is probably 2 to 3 months to actually reach out to a recruiter. Like in my experience, right? You're going to have probably a week and a half of going over details, making sure it's what they want, making sure they talk to their family, their significant other, right? Then if you get them submitted to a job, generally about within a week and a half, you're going to get feedback. They're probably not going to start right away. Right. So right there, that's 4 weeks. So that's almost a month. And then by the time they get, drug test, background, and start date, about 2 months. So 2 to 3 months is probably the sweet spot. But to start looking for information and getting ready, I would say probably 3 to 4 months, just so when you go into those conversations, you at least have some background.
Yeah. Okay. And what would you advise them to do in those 2 to 3 months? Like reaching out to guys, and it's a certain, have you seen somebody who did maybe already did all his research and stuff like that, and asking the right questions, knew exactly what he wanted? Like, what was that? What would that look like?
So, I mean, I've definitely had guys like that. Like, I had one guy who, unfortunately, he ended up going to SkillBridge because SkillBridge was a better fit for him. But he called me 8 months out. He's like, "Hey, man, I'm getting out in 8 months. I know you can't hire me right now. Are you willing to talk to me?" Kind of. And I was like, "Yeah, man, what's going on? What are you looking for long term? Where are you trying to be?" And we, we had a plan formulated, right? Like his end goal was to work with Lockheed. That's what he wanted. And so at the time we had an outfit that was working on C-130s, and one of the projects at Lockheed at the time was C-130s. So we were like, hey, this is what we're going to do, right? We're going to get out. When you get out, we're going to get you a job here. We had a job we were going to get him lined up for. It was going to be about 8 months contract there. And then we were going to put him, we had 2 opportunities to work with C-130s. We were going to try Lockheed and another opportunity. If Lockheed didn't take him, we'd take the other opportunity and try again Lockheed in a year. We had it all planned out. We had a plan for him. He knew what he wanted to do. And I think he actually got into SkillBridge with Lockheed and so he took it. But again, just having that time to sit there and talk to him, because I mean, I would send him emails. I sent him, the first couple emails were, I sent him probably 15 different jobs, 15 different sites, roughly what they were paying, what they were working on, where they were, just trying to feel out what was good for him, what he wanted. We nailed down a couple sites. We nailed down an area more, not a couple sites, an area, which was like South Carolina area that he wanted to be in. And then again, it was, we didn't talk every day. We didn't talk every week. We talked probably once or twice a month. But once he got to that 3-month window, we were talking about once a week, right? Hey, is anything changing? Is anything, is it still looking like this is the best opportunity? As a recruiter, that's something that I didn't do at first, but towards the end, I started asking more questions. Do you have a plan set up? Do you know where you're going to stay? Do you have money for tools? Do you have a toolkit? Do you have money to travel there? You're not going to get a paycheck for the first week. Do you have enough to live that first week?
Financial.
You can buy, because again, the planning is not just, hey, I'm getting this job. It's, I got to move my family. I got to get a house. I got to get an apartment. I got to get utilities, I got to make sure. So again, like when you get that 3 to 4 months, then you can really look, okay, I'm looking at, locking down. I really want to work for these 3-4 companies. And then you can do more research there. Hey, company A, I'm not going with because I can't afford to live there, right? Company B is a good fit. Company C is a good fit. And company D is a good fit. Now we can drill on those 3. This is more what you're going to be doing here. This is more what you're going to be. It just, when you give them, 3, 4, 5 months, you're going to get a better picture. You're going to get a better feeling. And let's be honest, you want to trust your recruiter, right? You want to have that relationship. So having 2 or 3 calls that are just a nurturing call, not even, hey man, are you ready to go? You ready to go? Just, hey man, how are things going? How are you feeling about the transition? What's going on? You told me you were having issues with the car. Did you get it fixed? How's that going? What are you looking at? Just those conversations to make them feel more comfortable and ready for the opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. I have so many questions coming up as you're talking, like,
you're good.
like a couple of things, like, how they know what does a bad recruiter look like?
Some bad recruiters we had some recruiters that just never wanted to get on the phone.
That's not good at all.
They don't want to get on the phone. Other ones, they focus too much on the wrong thing. Trying to think of examples, but trying to push somebody, trying to push a square into a circle hole. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's the wrong experience, so they're just like, oh, he has aircraft experience, let's send him here. No, that's not the right aircraft experience. That's not the right this. Or, hey, that's a 5-level job. He's only got 4 years and it's military. So we need to get him to a different operation. Focusing on the wrong, people who, recruiters that live on LinkedIn and Facebook groups. LinkedIn and Facebook to a recruiter should be a supplemental tool to help you build your pipeline. It should not be your bread and butter, right? Let's be honest. You're not going to have the same. If I sit there and talk to you through text for a week, we're not going to have the same connection we do as if we have a good 15-20 minute conversation. Right. So that's that. And I mean, the other thing is just like, I had a problem when I started recruiting is on the other side of that, looking too much for the perfect guy, right? MP license, 5 years experience, has 737 background, has Airbus 320, and has C-130. And you're like, oh, this guy has 2, but not 3. Oh no, what do I do? Like, I'm not going to send him. No, there's a point where as long as you're hitting most of those requirements, you should be asking, right? Because again, a lot of companies, they're looking for a purple unicorn, right? They're not going to find it out there. But if you can prove, hey, you're looking for these 3 aircraft. My guy has 5 years of experience on aircraft 1 and 5 on year 2. He has touched aircraft 3 or he's been around it, but he hasn't officially worked on it. Whatever it is, you just got to find that fit. You got to figure out what that is. You got to find out. As a recruiter, you got to find out what's important to the hiring managers. Is it more the years of experience or the aircraft? Is it, being able to come in and work by yourself, or is it being able to come in and work as the team? Just those little pieces can change. So
that makes, because I'm sure that there's quite a bit of those recruiters out there that, it's like having a virtual girlfriend. You don't know what they look like. You don't know. You just know them, Facebook or LinkedIn.
Yep, exactly. And And that's where that phone piece comes in big, right? Like you got to have somebody who's willing to talk, willing to be there, and honestly, willing to ask the hard questions, right? Like I can sit here all day and say, hey, Jose, I got an awesome opportunity paying 35. You want to go? Yeah, I want 35 an hour. Let's go. What's going on? Well, it's out in the desert. It's not in it's not in a climate controlled hangar. Or on the other side, it's out in Maine. Most of it's in the hangar, but there is some line work you got to do when it gets cold up there, man. Like, are you prepared for that? Do you come from cold climate? Or are you a warm climate guy your whole life and you're going to struggle? Like, again, asking the hard questions. Sometimes recruiting is selling them out of the job, realizing like, hey man, you told me this is important. This company doesn't hit any of those. Why do you want to go there? Well, it's good pay. Okay, it's good pay, but you're not going to like this. You're not going to like this. You're not going to like this. So you're going to go for 3 weeks and call it quits, you know? So asking those hard questions can be tough too. I will tell you to this day, one of the best recruiters I've ever seen at it was a guy that I worked with at launch named Danny. Danny was on top of his stuff. But he wasn't afraid to, you know, I don't want to say yell at a contractor because he never yelled, but he wasn't afraid to question them, you know. Dude, you just told me you were going to be at the site. You didn't show up because you said your car didn't work and you're trying to go to another job. What are you talking about? How am I going to get you there if you don't have a car? You know, like those are things that we see. So on the side of being a good recruiter, it's asking the right questions, making sure you're on the phone and having good conversations, right? So
because you know, if you have 400 companies on your hands, you know, you don't want to ruin that relationship with them, because if, especially, I'm assuming some of these guys are a retainer, and if you keep giving them crap recruits, and they're not going to want to do business with you because you're just trying to push them through and not giving them, you know, somebody who fits and it's going to stick around.
And on the other side, just the contractors themselves, right? If you if a guy trusts you and you put him in a good position and you got him the right job, next time, when that job ends or the next time he's looking for a job, who's he going to call first? Hey man, Ryan set me up. He had me a job. He told me all the right information. He got, you know, my pay was right. Like, I'm calling Ryan, you know. That's another piece to it.
And, you know, it's always good that, hey, this guy took care of being referred, basically. It's good. It's a good sign.
All right. Exactly.
Let's see. So, okay. So those are the things to watch out for a bad recruiter, is not just texting you through LinkedIn or Facebook. All right. And you can actually have a conversation and gives you the hard questions. I think that's very good advice. And as for the service member, you know, what is your thoughts on him using LinkedIn?
Absolutely, you have to. LinkedIn is not something that I used early in my professional life, and I wish I would have. But now, you just have to. Number one, you're going to get good information, right? There's other vets going through what you're going through. They're going to post up. You can see what's going on there. Companies are going to post jobs that you can look at. And even if it's not a job you want, you can look at it and understand, like, okay, this is, you know, if I look at 3-4 jobs and they're all paying between 32 and 35, I can confidently say, I should be able to command 32 to 35 for a job. LinkedIn is an absolutely great tool. Also, for all the vets out there, if you do not know, you get a free year. You get a free year of LinkedIn Premium. I have mine going right now. It's going to end. When I got let go from launch, I realized, I got a free year of LinkedIn Premium. So I jumped on it right away. And, you know, I'm going to pump myself here right now, but I found the right job, right? Like when this job posted, I looked at it and I was like, I don't know if it's something that I can do. Started reading about the company, realized they were in aerospace and defense. And I was like, all right, I can do this now. This is my bread and butter. And, you know, I applied. I actually have a brief story here real quick. I went through a very interesting interview process. So the company that I interviewed, so I got the job at IFS, but I went through an interview process with a company called Phoenix 51. They're a recruiting company out of Europe. And what they do, it was unlike anything I've ever done, Jose. It was absolutely very cool, but there was over 860 applicants for this job. And so Phoenix 51 has you send in 2 videos of yourself, just, you know, asking questions about your personality. If they review those videos and do well, then I went to a phone call with them, went through a phone call with Phoenix 51. They talked to me and they said, hey man, you know, we really like what you brought on this call. You know, we're going to invite you. So they ended up bringing in 30 people to the Itasca office out here in Chicago. And it was a group interview with 30 people. You were going through, you did like a group interview, then you did like a presentation, and then you did a one-on-one panel. But it was an all-day event, but they hired 9 of us from that event. So as much as it was stressful, it was also kind of cool because now, you know, 9 other people went through the same thing I did to get hired, to get here. And to me, that spoke to me like the military, right? Because it's camaraderie, right? You all went through the same thing now to get this job. You're all starting at square one. You're all ready to same thing in the military, right? We all got shipped into boot camp and got stripped down and said, put it, you know, here's your skivvies, go. So it's cool to have that camaraderie that we all went through the same hiring process, the same interview time, you know, and even still, we all met each other that day and we're talking a little bit. So when we started, it was, you know, like you were starting with some people you knew, not just by yourself. So sorry, that was a tangent, but it was just kind of a cool story.
No, that is pretty interesting how serious they take their candidates, you know, and to find the right fit. Because it'll be weird. It's like, yeah, we're taking bodies. We don't care. It's just almost second guesses of their quality of the people you're going to be working with.
Exactly.
You know?
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting if people are willing to take, you know, how serious are they about this position, right? Because you'll see that as, oh, I don't care about this place, or they'll never fire me because they need people, you know. So it's,
Yep.
you know, going through a process, like knowing that there's, you know, 800 some other people who want to take the job, they're willing to do that too.
Yep. It was. And it also shows you, you know, like for me, what was I looking for in a company, right? I wanted to see that they supported the program that I was going into, which, let's be honest, if you're interviewing 800 people and you're bringing in an external company to, you know, do that, I saw, you know, the support right there when I got in there, and I learned kind of their market position and where they were at. That was important. So yeah, it was an incredible experience. And that's where, like, it was nice coming from a recruiter, right? Because I knew what I was looking for. I knew what to ask. I knew, you know, and I actually had a good recruiter. It was very responsive. She was asking me questions. You know, she asked me the hard questions, like, "Hey, you've been in recruiting. You haven't really done sales in a couple of years. You know, are you comfortable?" I'm like, "It's conversations. It's talking. I'm good."
Yeah, that's very true. That's pretty cool how you go through that process, and you can, you notice it's kind of like electrician, having another electrician coming out and working on your house or something like that. It's like, you know exactly what to look for, you know, but you're not going to do the work because it's free by the landlord or something.
Yep, that doesn't go there.
He'll do all the muscle for it, you know. Yeah, that's pretty interesting, and that's a very interesting approach, because you would think that they just blow you up. It's just depending how responsive somebody is, but it's, you know, the process of from the onboarding to, you know, going through the hoops to get a job is pretty interesting.
Yeah, like I said, it was absolutely incredible. I actually went back to my old boss and was like, "Dude, this was a cool experience." So he kind of knew that was out there too.
Yeah,
so
that is pretty interesting. You already knocked out, just with that, knocked out like realistic and unrealistic expectations, and you know, cold feet. We talked about that. Just part of this is just educating these guys what to expect. It can help with some clarity on the hiring process, the transition process. You know, I'm not going to go too much into, you know, what to expect in the workplace, because you're turning a wrench, and really it's just learning some of the terminology, where to find instructions, and, you know, for a certain, you know, aircraft and stuff like that. So, but it'll be pretty interesting. I think Schoolbridge is a great program to kind of dip their feet into that. And
yeah,
I think a lot of companies out there trying to, you know, grow the awareness of like, hey, you guys have experience. Yep, you don't have any experience in this airframe, but, you know, righty tighty, lefty loosey is still the same on the outside too. And the same mindset of just figure it out. It's out there. The answer's out there somewhere. Figure it out. You know, it's going to be long hours too. And some guys like it. And figuring out problems, work, you know, just turning a wrench it's satisfying.
There's days that I wish I was just, you know, I was back doing it. I do, you know, there's days that, you know, I love what I do now, but at the same time, like, I miss just chasing wires and working on it. You know, that was so rewarding when you're like, this fault will not clear, what is going on, and tracking it down and finding that wire, finding the pin that's just, you know, off center, not, you know, not set right, and it's just not making the right connection. And you're like, wow, all right, we got it. It may have taken us 16 hours, but we got there.
And at those times like that, you're kind of like want to curse out an engineer. But, you know, when you do talk to engineers, you know, going a little more in depth. Hey, you know, like, how does the system work? And they love to talk about their craft as well. And it was like, it used to be this material, and now it's this material. And, you know, just picking their brain on how to fix some things. It can be as simple as using some grease to cover a scratch, because, you know, they're not going to try to replace this whole strut, you know, just from what's it called? So that way it doesn't leak. I was like, oh man, that's a great idea. I never thought about that. So there's some great engineers out there, and they love their craft. They're in their little war room, like, you know, and just tons of knowledge. So I always tell guys, dude, go talk to AFITs. I mean, that's what they call them for the F-16 guys and the A-10s, AFITs. A lot of those, I mean, in my experience, we had great technicians or engineers, and they're super knowledgeable and super happy that we were talking to them.
Yep. Sometimes they just want you to talk to them.
Yeah, because they've been in that room forever, and that's all they know is schematics and buttons, and that's it. But yeah, it's just the same things, that same mindset. You know, talk to recruiters. You know, just like that one Marine did. You know, reach out to you 8 hours and see if somebody was open to helping them out with the transition. And hopefully, you know, talking to you, this opens up, you know, helps other veterans kind of take those ideas and see what they need to do before they transition. Because, you know, I didn't even know A&P even existed 10 months prior to me separating, because
I didn't. I had always heard A&P, but I had no idea. And then, you know, in my situation, being avionics, I didn't absolutely need to have that to continue on, right? I could have found something, but everyone's, oh, you need your A&P, you need your A&P. So I didn't know. And that's, again, that's where understanding, if I was in aviation, or if I would have looked into, you know, electricians and realized, oh, yeah, it's great for an A&P or for an electrician to have an A&P, but it's not absolutely necessary. Because I had my FCC when I got out, you know, oh, I could have gone and done something, but I didn't know that, right? Same thing,
Yeah.
some sheet metal, a lot of sheet metal guys, they want them to have the AMP. But if you
Mhm.
can work sheet metal, man, even without the AMP, you need to be making sure you're still staying an airframer when you get out.
Yeah, yeah, because those guys are, even though that some of these aircraft are going composite, there's still the older aircraft out there, they need
Oh yeah.
sheet metal people, and some of these, a lot of aircraft that still, need that work.
Oh, 100%.
Well, thanks, Ryan, for taking the
Mhm.
time with me too. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but thanks for taking the time and helping these guys be educated a little more. And I'll definitely be talking to picking your brain about the recruiter side, and
Yep.
so that way better educate some of these guys and grow the awareness.
Yeah, anytime, man. I mean, you got my stuff. You can always reach out. If anybody else sees me on LinkedIn, add me if you want to talk. I'm an aviation geek. I love talking about it. So anytime you get me talking, I'll go. Yeah, man,
How do you
anytime.
spell your last name? So for the people, is Ryan?
Yeah. It's Ryan Leidig, Leidig. And
All right, guys.
it's just LinkedIn/in/Ryan Leidig. So
Awesome, awesome, guys. Well, hit him up. He has wealth of knowledge. I've known him for a couple of years. We met at the ATEC convention out in Chicago, right?
yep,
Yeah,
gotta go that
Chicago.
one.
So very helpful guy, and he's my first guest on here because he had tons of knowledge, and I know he's all about helping veterans out. So thanks, Ryan, and thanks everybody for tuning in. And I'm gonna stop it.